Dark and Darker. It's pretty difficult. Whether you're an experienced dungeon diver or not, you're likely to find your fair share of hardship. Sometimes it's a friendly spike trap giving you a brand new hole in your foot, and sometimes it's a gang of goblins that have all collectively decided you're not getting through that doorway. Sometimes it might just be finding any applicable method of fitting that last piece of loot in your bags before your extract portal is stolen right out from underneath you. Or worse.
Damn it!
But the good news to all of this is that you should never have to deal with any of this headache ever again. That's because in this video, I've compiled a treasure trove of tips to not only increase your skills, but also keep you one step ahead of the rest. I've gathered these tips from countless hours played and countless forums scrubbed, so I've got a lot to get into. But first, if you enjoyed the content or find anything useful, please hit that like, subscribe, and bell icon below. It helps me out a ton. And while you're there, consider leaving a comment and letting me know what you'd like to see in the next video. Tip number 1 is subscribe. Tip number 1, if you're a cleric, congratulations. You've picked the best class in the game. You can proceed to turn your brain off and heal through all of your inadequacies. Tip number 1 is don't worry too much about making it out alive when you're learning early on. You're gonna be dying. A lot. It's better to focus on activities that'll actually level you up, like opening chests, killing monsters, and breaking pots. Just learn how the weapons and mobs work for now until at least level 15 when you can open up the trading post. Remember that experience is earned whether or not you exfil, and having multiple perks and access to the market is far more important than leaving a couple extra items behind with a net worth of 100 to 200 gold. Use the time to learn and get better, not to win right out the gate against people that already have all 4 perks unlocked. Tip 1.5. I had to throw a 0.5 in there somewhere. You know, just keep you on your toes. Are there really 25 tips in here? I don't know. Maybe. All I know is chain lightning arcs off dead bodies. Tip number 2, there are set spawns for bandages and potions in both the goblin and the skeleton dungeons. Typically anywhere with bookshelves has a chance to spawn them and is a good place to check if you are low on funds or healing. Tip number 3, one of the best ways to kill large groups of mobs is with floor spike traps. They can be a pain to maneuver around, but come in clutch when you accidentally pull the entire room of mobs. Or when you just want some free loot. Note that if you don't get the last hit, then you won't get any XP for those mobs dying. But it still usually gives plenty of free booty, just like your mom. Tip number 4, the treasurer sells empty gold sacks for just 5 gold. Bring an empty gold sack to hold the loose gold you find on bigger runs. This will in turn allow you to carry more treasure, and very few treasure items are equal to a full sack of 50 gold, not to mention the space you save by storing all your extra gold in the same bag. Tip number 5, break pots, crates, and barrels when possible. They contain treasure, gear, healing items, utility items, and are well worth the time to smash. Note that rogues are only able to smash pots, and they need to bring a pickaxe to break open crates and barrels. It's because they're weak. Every rogue is a filthy little rat, always hiding in little dark corners like mold. Like the disgusting scum of the earth they are. Tip number 6, almost everything gives XP. If you can't escape, don't worry, you'll still get the points you got during that raid. And while I'm telling you everything gives XP, I might as well list it out for you, so here we go. Player kills give 0 XP, monster kills give 2 to 15 XP, and then spiders don't stack, because that would give infinite XP. Mini-boss kills 10 to 15 XP, boss kills 50 XP, opening chests and corpses 1 to 5 XP, opening bookshelves 3 XP, portals are 2 XP, and using shrines are also 2 XP. And lastly, killing your teammates because they quote-unquote hit you first rewards a just 0 XP. I just thought some of you might not be aware of that one. You know who you are. Tip number 7, no matter how geared you get or high level you may be, you will eventually die and lose it all. Start collecting backup sets whenever possible for when that happens. Usually backup sets are what fills most of my stash, so if you don't have anything better to fill the space, escaping with white armor or weapons might not be such a bad idea. Honestly, when you're fresh out of everything, you should take just about whatever you can get your hands on. Your stash should basically become the equivalent to the bedroom floor of a teenager while their parents are out of town. Clothes are everywhere, consumables here and there, valuables lying around, drugs somehow more neatly organized than anything else in the room, kinda weird, are those weapons and the remains and belongings of the last person I looted. In-game. Tip number 8, going outside the circle doesn't do too much damage, so you can go into it briefly to take a detour if you have to. Potions allow you to survive much longer outside the circle. If you're a warlock with Curse of Pain and mobs around, then you can survive much longer outside the circle. And if you have all of your perks on that warlock and you have those health potions, then you become a god ignorant of death. Tip number 9, they may not look it, but most ladders are actually climbable. It's a little janky, but you can just jump right up them to get in some incredible locations for loot or to set up an ambush. Much like all the dead players who will be ambushing my dislike button after getting shot with a longbow from the ceiling. Tip number 10, boss cheesing. It is the act of trivializing a boss fight by abusing a function of the game. Not cheating, but not intended. This usually includes jumping on top of a table, shelf, or ledge to get above the boss, or to kite the boss down some stairs and attack from below and outside of their attack range. This usually makes the boss way too easy to take down and kind of a joke. Also like your mom. Tip number 11, most doors have windows. These will be something to watch out for because spells, arrows, stab attacks, and even throwing items can fit through these holes and end your run. These things are great when you get to use them, and almost unwinnable when going against them if used correctly. So if you're an archer, the door is your best friend. Tip number 12, loot as you go. There's a ton of treasure on the walls and floors of the dungeons. Especially keep a lookout around the floor of big chests or altars and on shelves. Just running through Mummy Room, picking items up off the floor without killing or opening anything could net you more than 10 bag spaces of loot. Tip number 13, bring an invis potion on your big runs. Not necessarily to get the jump in a fight, but because invis potions completely drop your aggro on all mobs. If you're ever overwhelmed by a swarm of mobs, an invis potion can give you a little room to breathe. Not only will mobs not attack you, but they'll switch their focus to the next closest person. Tip number 14, to survive PvE, bait enemy attacks, turn and run straight away because you move slower when backpedaling, and then counterattack after their swing, rinse and repeat. This is the basic dance of melee combat. When you get more familiar with the way each weapon swings, eventually the dance will get more complicated because you can min-max more damage by blocking or dodging enemy attacks. Tip number 15, never trust other players when they spam crouch. You may accept it as a temporary truce, but keep in mind, they will try to lure you to your demise or betray you for a portal. If someone spam crouches you, that usually means that they're vulnerable at the moment, but will betray you once the conditions are right. Keep your eyes on them and keep your distance. Tip number 16, if you make it out with green or blue items that you don't need, especially rings and amulets, save them and get access to the market as soon as possible. There are many players who buy green and blue items for 100 gold or more. Way more value than selling to the traders. Tip number 16.5, on the topic of maxing your trader profits, if a trader gives you an offer on an item, anybody else who will buy that item will buy it for the same price. Don't waste time trying to sell weapons to the weaponsmith and armor to the armorer. I know I've spent way too much time trying myself. Number 17, the surgeon and the alchemist sell two types of potions and bandages. The one with lesser quality is way cheaper. Make use of this. I always buy the cheap potions so I can build up a stash of convenient health pots. Tip number 18, most of the starter gear is really bad. Merchants will sell very cheap versions of the gear you need, be it weapons or armor, that will drastically change your class. Stock up on these because they're cheap and on rotation. Tip number 19. Some traps are positioned in such a way that it seems impossible to pass them without taking damage. There is actually a secret to this. Spike traps cannot activate again less than a second or two after the previous action. They are also activated by thrown torches. So all you have to do is throw the torch, activate the trap, and start running as soon as the spikes go down from your torch. You want to get just 1 or 2 steps on the trap before you jump, because they'll come back up really quickly. But if you time it right, you can cross any trap without taking damage. Tip number 20, potions are some of the brightest and most glaring items in Dark and Darker. They're probably the first thing you see when scanning a new room for loot because of how bright they are. Be aware that they are just as bright on your character's waist when equipped on your belt. It's impossible to hide in the dark with potions on your belt. Make sure to unequip your potions when trying to hide. Tip number 21, you lose no movement speed when punching. Most attacks cost a little bit of time to fully make contact with, and that slows you down. This can be the cast time of a spell, the drawing of a bow, swinging of a weapon. They all slow you down, but not these hands. These two are free all day. Use them to chase down pesky rangers and the like, who all seem to be juiced up, multi-record setting Olympic triathlete, triple 100K marathon gold medal winning champions. One jab can solve all that. Tip number 22, you can block or riposte swinging axe traps. Usually these aren't too difficult to dodge, but sometimes through fault of ping and definitely no fault of my own, they can still hit sometimes. Consider throwing up your shield next time you run through those traps to avoid lagging. Tip number 23, learn attack patterns. There are many different enemies in this game, all with variations. Like, you know, sometimes they're more red and scarier. Learning how each of these enemies use their weapons, and more importantly how to dodge or block them, will save you countless lives of HP in the long run. So you should go look that one up for yourself. I'm not taking the time to explain all that. Especially when you can just look it up yourself. You know, like right here. Look, I'll just type it in for you here. We'll learn about it together. Just here we go.
One of the biggest hurdles players will face.
Tip number 24, jump and start casting mid-jump. You don't get slowed from casting until you land. This is big for kiting. Do the same when using potions, bandages, and swinging depending on your weapon. You can do the same with a ranger before shooting or reloading too. Tip number 25, always, and I mean always, check the merchants for blue or purple items every time they refresh. The weaponsmith especially seems to have some good deals and good stats. Not only can you sometimes get a good blue or purple for yourself at a lower price than trading with players, but you can usually resell these blues to players for quick and easy gold. This is by far the easiest and safest way to make gold in the entire game when it's available, and you can do it all from the lobby. So there's 25-ish tips to help you on your dungeon crawling endeavors. But what do you guys think? Did I get something wrong? Is there anything that I missed? Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments section below. And while you're there, please hit that like, subscribe, and bell icons. They really help me out a ton. And by really help me out a ton, I mean whenever I get a little notification on my phone that somebody just subscribed to the channel, I just get like a huge serotonin release, like a massive dopamine hit. You just wouldn't believe it. It just gets everywhere, really. It's kind of a mess. I also have a Patreon and Discord and Twitter, so go there so you can get everything that you need. Soulstace.info is your one-stop shop for everything Soulstace. Please go there right now.